Welcome to the RKKR Horror Book Club, where we read one horror book a month and then come on here and talk about it with our unqualified opinions like they matter. My name is Caitlin, and that is Rob. He would never drink the Kool-Aid. It has too many calories. Lamontang.
I probably would drink the Kool-Aid. Here we are again. We're doing another book review. And if you are trying to figure out that reference to the Kool-Aid, it's Last Days, which is by Adam Nevill. And it's about a cult. A wild cult.
Yeah, so basically this book is about a documentary filmmaker who is hired to make a documentary on this cult that started in, the 1960s? It just gets a little bit hairy by the end, and we just follow Kyle. His name is Kyle, the filmmaker.
Kyle and Daniel, and they reference their video editor, but he's not really a character in there.
Yeah. I like his name though, Finger Mouse.
Finger Mouse, yeah, because he just click, 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 click. Yeah. I really, really enjoy the cult aspect of this book. Do you find that Adam Nevill, because what was his other book that he did? The Ritual, right? Like, he's done multiple books, but he did The Ritual. Mm-hmm. He likes the ancient monster type creatures, eh? Like, I couldn't, like, I just kept picturing his monsters from here being like the Ritual monster, almost like that old ancient looking creature coming out of the wall type thing, right? But how did you feel about the ending?
Yeah, so I really liked the first half of this book. It's a pretty long book, like it's over 500 pages. Mm-hmm. And I want to say the first half was great. Yeah. I was really into it. I was in Ireland, and I was actually staying at an old, 12th century castle, and I started reading it, and I was getting so scared at nighttime. Like, it was so spooky. Yeah. And then, right halfway through, kind of plot changed. Yeah. Not plot, but the
pace change.
Sorry?
Pace change, like the pace and the theme change. Yeah,
and it kind of went downhill. One of the characters in the beginning of the book, his name is Max, and he was one of the creators of this cult, and he actually is the one who is funding this documentary to get made now, because he kind of knows what this cult is and what they're doing, and so he wants Kyle to document. So in the first chunk of the book, he didn't really have anything to do with anything. And then by the end, he was kind of like a main character who I thought was just awful. I hated his character just in general. He was an exposition character. That's all he did, was explain everything that was happening, even though I just spent 300 pages reading about what that was. And it didn't matter. And then, so it was tough, and I read the first chunk really quick, and it took me forever to finish this book because I didn't care.
So I read the first half of this book, and then I ended up audiobooking the last half of the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I wish I would have just continued reading. So this is kind of like a weird, I'm in a weird spot, but I'm glad that you're also kind of confirming that it fell flat for you in the second half too. It wasn't bad, but it just felt flat. Like, it just didn't really, like, the first half you're like, oh wow, this is like a crazy cult story. You had really good characters. I really liked Max at the start of the book. I thought he was a very eccentric, weird dude. And we're gonna get you to make this little documentary about us. Like that purposely happy, I really, really enjoyed the police officer character. When I read that, when they finally get to America and they are going to the caves or whatever, the cop that's or the sheriff that's showing them around these caves, I read that character like a Forrest Gump or that lady in No Country for Old Men, where Anton's character talks to her at the trailer park, and he's like, "Yeah, I need to speak to so and so," and she's like, "I can't tell you where he is right now." And I read that whole sheriff scene with that accent, and it made it so good because it was just so stiff. And that's where the bodies were, and that's where we found the children. And I was like, I love this guy. Like, this is a great character.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, in that second half, I was like, all of a sudden, is this an action movie?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they're mowing down all these like creatures that were scary in the first half, to then them just being creatures that you could just kill. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like if we're gonna have these terrifying creatures in the first half that seemed like unstoppable and like there's no escape from this, they can just come after you anywhere, to then all of a sudden in the last half be like, you could have just shot them the entire time. You could have
Mm-hmm.
just like bashed their fought back. You could have fought back at any point. But
Yeah.
then, so that's I think that was the change for me, where you had this great, oh my god, existential crisis. You can't sleep. You have to have the lights on at all times. Like they figure out how to turn the power off. That kind of terror, to like just have flares and a bat, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt about the whole thing. It was good, and I liked the characters. It just kind of fell apart in the end for me.
I didn't really love the characters. Like Kyle was a little annoying. Because it was one of those things where it's just like, okay, the beginning of the book, when he starts to notice and hear things, and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's like impossible. And then it kind of keeps happening, and then like he sees like physical things, and things start happening
Yeah.
to him, and he's like, no, it's just like not possible. And it's like, okay, I'm like 400 pages in.
Yeah.
Just acknowledge that it's happening. And even like at the end, when he reaches out to Max, and Max is like, you have to travel to this other place to learn about paintings. Even then, he was still like, Max, let's call the police,
Yeah.
because like the police can help. And it's like, dude, this is like, how are you not
Yeah.
understanding this? And then I kind of get like by the end of it, he's like a little insane, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he's just like psychologically broken down. So I get that, but it was really hard to read about him the whole time. And when he shows up to Max's place after filming all these people who knew about the cult and were there and could explain like what happened, like for some
Mm-hmm.
reason, no, we have to go back to Max. And then I'm going to read 20 pages about what happened from Max. It's like,
Yeah.
why? And then I have to read about a painting, like 10 pages about what these paintings look like, which are sick. Like that part is cool.
Yeah.
But it was really tough that it was like back to back, just like constantly, okay, now I'm finding out right at the end, but we had this entire book to like talk about this stuff. It could have been condensed into like 200 less pages
Yeah.
I don't know, it was just really tough. And also, what happened to Dan, like
Yeah, I know. Like and I didn't quite understand the ending too, because it was just like, was it like a ring? The ring where like, hey, like you gotta show this tape or don't show the tape type thing. I'm gonna be honest with you here. The
okay.
recording that I had on YouTube, there was like half an hour missing of it.
What? So did you get the very end?
I
Like, do you
I
know how it
did.
actually ends?
I know, like I just didn't understand it. I was like, I don't quite know if I'm missing something from, like, because there was like a chunk where I was listening to everything, and then like I thought it was like a break from like chapter to chapter, and then it like went on for like 5 minutes of silence, and I was like, what the hell? And I had to like keep scrolling ahead further and further and further. And it was like 45 minutes of the story. So sorry, everyone, but that wasn't the ending. That was like there was still lots more to go after that. But I'm not 100% sure I know that they had to kill the guy, the kid, in order to like kind of stop this from happening more. But I don't understand like what was his backup with Finger Mouse, and like because there was like it left on like a Finger Mouse like don't send the tape out or something like that.
It was so the end is he kills Chet
Yeah,
because he was ascending and going into the kid. And
right,
so he kills Chet, and then the whole thing, I think it's a little like it's supposed to be however you interpret it, whether but it kind of implies that the kid is actually possessed
right.
and he just left it, right?
Yeah,
He just
so
left
that's
the
the
kid.
thing.
And
Yeah,
then because he kind of is like, oh, it has eyes that like I recognize or it recognizes me or whatever. So it's kind of like, is it possessed or did he stop it in time? I don't know.
yeah.
That's what I got. And then he leaves the house and realizes that nothing can get pinned to him. So he was like, wow, I can just leave. And
Oh,
like,
right. And as long as the movie doesn't come out or the documentary, then he's
yeah.
just like clear. Okay, so the entire time I was like really excited for the fact that I thought they were all gonna get possessed, and I thought that that's what like Max was trying to hold off was him preventing himself from getting possessed by the old friends. Like, because there's a bunch of scenes where uh, Kyle is like wakes up levitating right in his
Hmm.
bed.
Hmm.
So and I was like, is he slowly being possessed by these things? Is that's like what's happening? But then again, it just turned into like an action movie. I think I remember the exact moment where I was like, they just jumped the shark for me was when they're talking about how when they had to get into this house, and they're like he might have pet tigers or snakes or something like that we might have to like kill. I was like, what? What is happening now? Like what? Like this is supposed to be like creepy, and it was. There was good scares in the book. It was. It reminded me of Alien and Aliens, where the first Alien is terror and it's a horror movie, and then Aliens is an action movie.
Mm.
You know, it's not really scary. It's just it's got the horror elements from the first one, but it's just more of an action movie. And those two movies are great, but this book isn't that. You know, um, I really liked his relationship with Dan though. Kyle and Dan's relationship. They had that coworker that you have a great time with at work vibe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where they both will laugh at those same things that like those inside jokes. Like when that lady first shows up to do the interview, and she the way she looks, and Dan kind of like looks at Kyle like like, and they start laughing about that silent like you
Yeah.
know that kind of stuff was great. Um, I loved when they both got scared in the house together because that is such a everyone can relate to that kind of feeling of being like, what was that? And you're both like kind of giggling about how scared you are, but then when you actually do get scared, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
That like running away and something's gonna swipe at your back feeling, which was the same. I got that same feeling from Stephen King's book that we read, the vampire one. I'm drawing a blank on it now, but
Salem's Lot.
Salem's Lot when they're running up out of like the basement there and like he feels like something's chasing him. Everybody
Yeah.
knows how that feeling is. Like everybody can recognize that.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
so I like there were a lot of things that I really really liked about the book, but I
Mhm.
just the ending was it just it petered out.
Yeah. And well, actually, to piggyback off what you were talking about with like the tigers and snakes and stuff, like that was brought up, and then it was like, oh, I guess we don't have any. It's like, then why did why did you write that?
Yeah,
Why do I
yeah,
care if it's not? And then, yeah, there was the one thing I will say is that I was surprised by the story by the end,
mm,
where when we first started the book, I was like, "Oh, Max is bad. Max wants this documentary made because it's going to get spread, and then this cult will start
yeah,
spreading." That was instantly what I thought, and that wasn't the case. So I was like, "Okay, like that's nice that I didn't predict what was happening."
yeah,
I also felt dumb because I was like, I am not retaining the imagery that he's putting forth. It was described so much
Yeah.
that I was like, I don't know what I'm reading. Like there was
Yeah. I got that same feeling too when he was describing the way the creatures looked as they were like coming out of the wall and stuff like that. I was by the end of it, I was just like, okay, this is what they look like in my head, and every time he starts talking about it, I'm just going to think of that, regardless of whether or not he's like describing something different. This is
yeah.
what they look like. That's it.
Yeah.
Because he got like a little bit too wordy and descriptive with these creatures coming out of the wall that I'm like, okay, it's a pile of bones at this point. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about,
Well,
you know?
he was like that with everything. Like even
Yeah.
when he was describing Chet's castle or like mansion, sorry, at the end, I was
Yeah.
like I was glazed over just skimming
Mm-hmm.
trying to get to the next point because I was like I don't
Yeah.
care anymore. Like I don't yeah, it was tough. It was this was a really tough book to finish and I'm bummed because I actually really like Adam Nevill. Like I know a lot of people I don't think love like The Ritual, but that was one of my favorite books.
I thought this book would be very, very, very good as a found footage mockumentary.
Right? Cuz here's the thing. This is why I was so excited about reading it. Is I love horror,
Mm-hmm.
love true crime,
Mm-hmm.
and I especially love true crime about cults. And so I'm
Yeah.
getting a horror book and a true crime documentary all in one.
I was when I was reading it, I was reading it like it was a found footage
Mhm.
uh, documentary. Everything that you could have had, like you had the whole first half was just interviews with people, right? And then going between like the interviews, you have them back at whatever place that they're doing, discussing whatever they just happened. Like the pacing is just right for it in the first half. And then all of a sudden you would drop off and have to make it into like an actual like action movie. It totally took me right out of like all of the things that I had in my head. And maybe it is because I, you know, went to an audiobook, but like you're kind of confirming the same thing. I don't even know if it would have changed for me. But I did find it to be very, very wordy. There was a lot of times where I'm like, oh, okay, you're lost in the weeds here with how you're describing this stuff. Still, I still really enjoyed the first half. Like the first half made me feel like, oh, it's really good.
Yeah. Well, let's rate it.
Okay.
What are you going to give it?
I'd give it 3 Flavor Aid cups full of poison out of 5 for me.
What is a Flavor Aid cup?
Well, that's what was actually used at Jonestown.
Oh, okay. Creepy. I give this book 2 Catholic priest swines out of 5.
Catholic priest swines. Oh my
You don't
God.
remember that part?
No, what part was that?
It's I was wondering why you didn't laugh.
Sorry.
It's when they were explaining the paintings about what happened in 1500s. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is this part of the 45 minutes that was missing?
It must have been. Do you not remember him traveling to like Sweden or wherever to learn about paintings?
No.
Okay. So this might be a longer episode, guys. Sorry.
Sorry.
So he goes, I can't remember where, somewhere to learn about these paintings that were created because this happened before in the 1500s. And Catherine, the cult leader, knew about this, and where they set up shop in Normandy, I think, is where it happened in the 1500s, where a guy called upon this other world. And then but anyway, the swine thing, this like cult leader in the 1500s had this huge following and everyone believed him, and but a bunch of people didn't, so they were like attacking his cult. town, and he was like, oh, like, you don't believe me? And then he put, because you know how the whole thing is like, I can go put my being into this other body. He
Oh,
put a priest inside of a pig, and the pig had like its own like scepter.
what?
Yeah. Anyway, so that's why I gave it.
Wow, that kind of reminds me of a scene from Willow where she's like, "You're all pigs."
Yeah.
But that explains why Kyle didn't want the film to get out too, because he doesn't want anyone else to know about this. He wants it to cut off so that no one can summon the old friends again. That's okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, but yeah, okay. That wow. Damn it! This had such potential to be really, really good, but it just turned into an action movie.
Yeah.
And it was the action stuff for me that like I was like, what? Like if these things were killable the entire time, why wouldn't you just be like, you hear that thing coming out of the wall, just go up and like bash its brains in,
I know.
and then yell at the wall and be like, who's next?
Especially because like you can use salt on them.
Yeah,
And it's like,
get out of here, slug.
yeah.
Once you've broken a rule or done something, it totally changes for me, where I'm like, oh well, why wouldn't, like, now this isn't really that bad, you know?
I mean, it's still pretty bad.
No, man, like it's kind of like how we all like, if a zombie apocalypse happened right now, it would be over in a day. If the dead started coming back to life, it would be over in a day, because everybody's like, well, we know what to do, you know? Just keep killing the things. or make some money out of it, you know, become like a sideshow guy and be like, hey, these things are going to come for me.
Yeah.
We got all the answers here in RKKR. That's what it always, this always turns into me being like, I would have done this, you know?
So then, Rob, what are we reading next month?
We are reading, a friend of mine suggested 3 short stories from an audiobook that he listened to. It was a Stephen King book. He picked from a book called You Like It Darker. It's a fairly recent book. I've actually been kind of listening to a bit of it already. But his 3 stories that he liked the most out of it were Two Talented Bastards, Danny Coolin's Bad Dream, and The Answer Man. So that's a friend giving a little, you know, short stories that he'd like us to read.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that will be nice, because this was a long book, and so let's have an easy month, huh?
Yeah, I think so. But that book itself is like 20 hours long. There's like a lot of
wow.
Oh yeah, there's a lot in there.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
But we're only going to be discussing the 3.
We're only going to be discussing the 3 unless you do extracurricular and you want to give your, you know, advice, or not advice, your review of anything else that you might have read.
Yeah.
In there.
Okay. All right, friend. Until next month.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.